welcome to Conversations with the Chronicle. My name is Eric Crump with the Homewood-Flossmoor Chronicle. My guest is Nicholas Epley, who is, and I'm going to read it because I don't want to get it wrong, the John Templeton Keller Distinguished Service Professor of Behavioral Science and Faculty Director of the Roman Family Center for Decision Research at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. It's a mouthful, but it's a guy who's obviously well qualified to write about sociability. And he's also the author of Mind-Wise, Why We Misunderstand What Others Think, Believe, Feel, and Want, which came out in 2014. But today we're going to talk about his new book, which comes out in May, called A Little More Social: How Small Choices Create Unexpected Happiness, Health, and Connection. Dr. Epley, welcome.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you
Appreciate
for joining
being
us here.
Thank you.
Maybe the place to get started is actually to start with the story that begins the book, which happened at Homewood Metro Station, or in the train, actually. So maybe you can tell us
2 miles from where we're sitting at the moment.
Exactly.
So this book really is kind of a 15-year journey about research that started many years before then, but there was a triggering eureka moment for me that started my interest in this, and it happened one morning on my train, on my commute into the University of Chicago, where I work as a professor of behavioral science. And I was sitting there on the train. I had just written a chapter. I was working on a chapter for Mind-Wise, my first book, describing how we have a brain that's uniquely equipped for connecting with the minds of others, how we're made happier and healthier connecting with the minds of others. We had done a lot of research looking at how well people can understand the minds of each other. And yet I was sitting in this train car looking around, and here we all were, highly social agents with brains made happier and healthier by connecting with each other, and we were all ignoring each other, right? And as a behavioral scientist, we get the benefit of looking around the world and noticing situations that just make you go, what the heck are we doing there? And so I wondered, what are we all doing? Does this make sense for us? We're made happier and healthier by connecting, and yet here none of us are choosing to do it. So that morning, a woman sat down. She actually got on here in Hazelcrest, very close to us now, just a stop or two down the road. She got on and she sat down next to me, and I thought, I'm going to put myself in an experiment this morning. I'm going to try something a little different. I'm just going to try making a connection. I'm going to try having a conversation with her. She had this beautiful red hat on, this big, wide red brimmed hat, looked fabulous. And so I turned to her and I said, I love your hat. I have one just like it, right? And we both laughed a little bit. I was kind of shocked, though. I was paying close attention in that moment, and I was shocked by her response. She turned to me, her face lit up, smiling almost like she was a different person, and we started the conversation. Of course, before I had started the conversation, I had all these anxieties about, well, how's this going to go? Does she really want to talk to me? What will we talk about? Might she think I'm a creep trying to talk to her on the train that morning? But once we started talking, it was just easy and fun, and we enjoyed it. And I remember standing up at the end of that train, walking off, and she said, thank you so much for talking with me this morning. And it felt very genuine. When we both really seemed to have a nicer 30 minutes there than we would have otherwise. And I remember the feeling was, that wasn't just great, it wasn't just nice, it was surprisingly nice. Because I had been very nervous about it, right? We're all not talking to each other because we're nervous about how it's going to go. And yet, once I started, it was much better than I expected it would be.
And you thought, there's a research project.
Exactly, right? So turns out a lot of behavioral science is a little bit of research. That is, you notice things in the world and try to understand them in your own life, and then that gives you some insight into what might be going on in the minds of everybody else. You kind of ask a question, is this a general thing we do? And it turns out, it's not just something unique to me, it's a very general thing we do. That little morning, that little moment was just the tip of what became a very massive iceberg of research. Thousands of research participants since dozens and dozens of experiments with people all around the world have shown that we're overly pessimistic about how things will go when we reach out to connect with them.
And that's part of the pattern you discovered, isn't it? Can you describe what the research consistently shows?
So after that morning on the train, I thought we need to do some research on this phenomena, this anxiety we have, and whether it's misplaced or not. So what we did is we went right back to the train that I ride in every day, and that Homewood-Flossmoor Chronicle readers will be on many days, I imagine. And we went to the Homewood station because they got an underground entranceway. We were running these experiments in the wintertime when it's cold. We couldn't do it in Flossmoor. It's above ground, hard to recruit people to participate in an experiment there. So we were underground in the Homewood station, had a sign up recruiting commuters to participate in an experiment if they were interested. And we actually ran 2 experiments here. In one experiment, we recruited people who said they were interested in participating. We didn't tell them anything about the experiment. Interested in participating, we handed them a survey, and we asked them to imagine that they were in one of 3 situations. We asked them to imagine how they would feel on the train that morning if they did what we're doing now, tried to have a conversation with somebody sitting next to them, like I had with the red-hatted lady one morning on the train. If they just kept to themselves and enjoyed their solitude, focused on their day ahead, which is what mostly people do anyway. Or if they just kept to theirs, or if they just did whatever they normally did, which is mostly sit there and keep to themselves, right? And on the survey, the results were crystal clear. People thought that keeping to themselves would leave them having a more positive commute than engaging with a stranger. They thought talking with a stranger would lead them to have the least pleasant commute of all. But we then ran another experiment to find out if those beliefs were actually calibrated or not. And here, we randomly assigned people to do one of 3 things for real, not just to imagine it, but to actually do it. So we actually asked them. Somebody comes and sits down next to you, try to have a conversation, keep to yourself and enjoy your solitude, or do whatever you normally do. And here, the pattern we found was exactly the opposite of people's expectations. People actually reported having the most positive commute when they talked to the stranger sitting next to them than when they kept to themselves or did whatever they normally did. So people's expectations weren't just wrong, they were precisely backwards. But the behavior I observed then that morning on the train, and that I still see almost every day on the train, makes a little more sense. If you believe that engaging with another person wouldn't be pleasant or that they don't want to talk to you, you wouldn't try. You never would find out that you might be wrong some of those days. You get a whole trainload of people who'd be happier connecting and nobody choosing to do it. And that would be a mistake, I think.
The paradox that you identify.
Yes. It's an interesting paradox, right? This fundamental paradox that we're social agents and yet we often choose not to be. And the reason for that choice we found over and over again now is that we're overly pessimistic about how positive it'll go if we actually reach out to engage with somebody else.
And the anxiety that people feel being the barrier, you also go into how to overcome that barrier, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of a section of the book too, is how. So I wonder if you could talk about like some of the maybe techniques or skills that people need to develop to get over that, so that they have that good experience, which probably feeds more good experiences. But you've got to do the first one, right?
You got to try the first one. So I think one way to think about this. So this is, you don't have to believe our research to test this for yourself. You can be an experimentalist for your own life here. Of course, you have to try it multiple times to collect some data. But the key is trying, is starting. So there are lots of moments in our lives where you might notice that you might like to reach out and engage with somebody else. It'd be easy to do. It's not scary. It's not risky. You're doing nothing else, right? You could engage, but you're a little nervous about it. That's a moment to test.
Yeah.
Try it in that moment. You're sitting in a waiting room. There's somebody there sitting next to you. I was on the train yesterday morning. Woman sat across the train from me. I'd seen her a couple days before. I just waved and said hello. She took out an earbud. She said hello back. Off we went, right? You can test those little moments where it's easy. You might be interested in engaging, but you're choosing not to see how it goes. And then once you start to calibrate those misplaced expectations. You realize, oh, wait a minute, that wasn't just good, that was surprisingly good.
Yeah.
And try it again.
And you also talk about there's this benefit of having a more pleasant experience in your day.
Yeah.
But there's actually more to it than that even. It's not just something a little pleasant. You quoted Bill Nye, I think, and talked about how this actually could be important to learning, right?
Yeah, you can. So there are lots of consequences that come engaging with other people. So we're starting with just like a first interaction with a stranger, say, right? You can make a moment better, yes. Our lives are full of moments, and the key to happiness is making those moments better, right? Yeah. So I don't think that's trivial on its own. The way to live a good life is to sum up a whole bunch of more positive moments than you might have otherwise. But yes, there are other things we get out of interaction too. We learn stuff. Bill Nye said, everyone you ever meet knows something you don't. That's absolutely true, right? But we find that people underestimate how much they're going to learn when they have a conversation with somebody else. Because if I just look at you, I don't know all that you know. I don't know where you've been, the experiences you've had. I've had amazing conversations with people. In cabs, I talked to a man one day who grew up just a few miles from where two of our children who we adopted from Ethiopia grew up. Right, and I was able to sing a song to him that we used to sing with the kids when they were young. I talked with a man on a plane one time who was one of only a small handful of men, he worked for the Department of Energy, who'd ever been inside the nuclear reactors in North Korea. Right?
That's pretty amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. A great plane flight to Washington, D.C. So you don't know what you're going to learn, and that's part of that is a feature of conversation. I don't know where the conversation's going to go. It can kind of go anywhere, and it often goes to unexpected places, and people don't. It's very hard to anticipate that, and that means we tend to underestimate how much we're going to learn.
Yeah, that was, and maybe that's getting back to the how a little bit, but you also talk about the power of reciprocity.
Yes.
That people may not really grasp how that works, and that's part of the barrier, right?
That is one of the big reasons why this happens. We tend to think about each other as if we're marbles, right? You and I have certain traits. We come together, we bounce off each other in certain ways, whatever. Even with our acquaintance or with our friends or with our spouse, we have certain traits. But the truth is that we're more like magnets to each other. When I reach out to you, you tend to reach back to me. I smile to you, what do you tend to do to me? I say hi to you, you tend to say hi back. Nobody waves, almost everybody waves back to you once you try. But those forces of reciprocity don't really enter into our expectations very well. So, for instance, we find that people expect that the quality of conversation, their experience in a conversation, will be based on, with a stranger at least, will be based on static features about the other person, like what type of person you are, right? Do we agree or disagree politically? Are you a friend or stranger? But not so much on the type of interaction we'll be having. So for instance, we have people have either a monologue or a dialogue with another person. Either you tell me what you believe on a certain issue, I tell you what you believe on. That's a monologue, right? It's not an actual interaction, so no magnets there. Or we actually have a dialogue like we're doing right now. People expect that the quality of those interactions will be driven by the type of person they're talking to, and they don't anticipate they'll have a better experience in dialogue than they do in monologue, and they're just wrong about that. Once you start talking, I say something, you think of something similar, you say something back, right, that's related to what I said, and so our conversation tends to go in places that we find mutually interesting. That's why we learn more than we expect, because we don't anticipate that.
And the assumption that they're going to be no reciprocity, they don't understand that that may happen, is something people need to be reassured about. They may think about, for instance, we're in a very divisive time politically, and if I talk to somebody else, what if they have the opposite views I do? That'll be a terrible experience. And you kind of encountered something similar in your London experiments. And I thought that was interesting how there was definite antagonism to the whole project. Right?
To the whole idea, yes.
So, I mean, maybe you could tell people about how that went and how you got past that.
So we did run some replications of the train studies that we did here in London. On the trains coming into London, we have a campus there. The University of Chicago has a campus there. We partner with the BBC. We ran a bunch of these. Interestingly, there was a campaign. It was actually after we ran our experiments, but there was a campaign in the UK run by this guy named Jonathan Dunn to try to, and he had the same experience I did. Looked around on the train, was kind of tired of people ignoring each other, thought these are a bunch of friendly people who could have a conversation. He started making these buttons that said tube chat on them with a question mark to indicate he was interested in talking, right? And the Londoners just revolted at this, right? He was handing out these buttons, but a rival Facebook page showed up, which was shut up tube chat, right? and they were handing out their own flyers saying, would you rather drink a pint of bleach than talk to another person? Then wear this button, shut up, tube chat, right? So there can be anxiety or reluctance to engage with strangers. We all believe that we want our moments of solitude, and certainly we do. What we don't appreciate is just how positive those interactions can be once we try. So even in London, where the home of the shut up tube chat movement, we found that Londoners also underestimated how much they'd enjoy talking to a stranger. If anything, the effects that we had on people's actual experience, that is enjoying talking with another person, were bigger in London than what we observed here in the U.S.
Even with that serious pushback, you found that the people
once you try, once you engage, right? It doesn't mean you intrude on everybody all the time, right? And even in our experiments, we push people maybe a little more than you might in daily life. Our data don't suggest that you should reach out and engage positively or try to with everybody all the time, right? You got things to do. Life's got to happen, right? But what's interesting to me are the number of places where you could do so easily, where you'd make a dull moment or a bad moment or a bad relationship or an unknown relationship or even a rough spot in a marriage, you'd make it better if you actually reached out and tried, and we choose not to. Those are the places where, those are the opportunities we have to make our lives better.
So you kind of have to, the first step is maybe training yourself to spot the opportunities,
notice
right?
it. Yeah. Okay. Yesterday I was on a train, a woman sat across from me, right? I'd seen her a time or two before, and I actually didn't notice she had her earbuds in, but that's often not a great sign of whether somebody's actually, maybe they're interested, but nobody else is talking, so they put them in. I waved to her, just said hello. She took out an earbud, she said hello back, and then got away. Keeping your eye out for them.
Okay, so that, and you did mention just now, there's a limits to what you do. It's not an all or nothing kind of thing. And you also talk, I think, in the book about learning to develop the skills of conversation, which is something that, that we may have gotten out of the habit of, like,
maybe a little bit.
With social media, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
So there's advice, too, about how to think about conversation and engage in it so that it's more likely to be productive,
Yeah,
right?
so I think the big thing, so often when I talk about this research, people will ask me, okay, like what's the trick? What's the best compliment to give somebody? What's the best way to express gratitude? What's the best way to, to show your appreciation to your spouse? What's the best way to start a conversation? As if they're like magic words. There aren't magic words, right? The woman sat down next to me. She had a lovely hat. I made a comment on it, like yours, right? It's a great looking hat. I like it. It's not, engaging with other people isn't about knowing a set of tricks. It's about taking an interest in it. It's about a mindset.
Yeah.
It's about making yourself open to it, keeping your eyes open, right? I'm walking along the sidewalk on the way to work. Somebody comes up next to me. I say hello, right? I see an opportunity. I got 4 blocks. Nothing to do. Say hi there, right? I realize, for instance, and this is just a little thing, but it can sometimes become bigger. Walking into my office at the University of Chicago, I've got maybe 200 yards from the door of the office up to my office. And I realized one day I was walking that whole route, just kind of keeping to myself, not really doing much of anything. I thought, that's silly. And so I decided to make that like a hello walk, where I would just say hello to people as I pass them. Super easy to do, not hard at all, right? And it just brightens that moment. But it occurred to me because I was paying attention. I was taking an interest in connecting with other people. And once you take an interest, a lot of this other stuff follows quite naturally.
So that's the trick. There is a trick. It's just taking an interest.
It's not the words. It's not the specific because every conversation, every interaction, every relationship is going to be a little different. But if I take an interest in you, I behave differently towards you than if I'm indifferent.
You trigger reciprocity.
Exactly.
Yeah, there we go. All right.
Exactly.
And I also wanted to mention, I mentioned a minute ago about social media. I mean, it has taken over their society. It's pretty pervasive, and we stereotypically now are all bent over our phones all the time, and that precludes the opportunities. I was going to share with you a quote I just came across this morning from a tech writer Cory Doctorow, who said social media bosses have been at war with sociability. And they have a business model that makes less money when we have genuine interactions with people. They need a particular kind of engagement to make more money. So so your idea is kind of going against the grain of that phenomenon. What do you suggest to people about how to deal with that? Yeah.
The history of social media is interesting. They didn't start out where we are now. They really did start out thinking, we're going to connect people. We're going to allow people to connect with old friends. And part of that based on the belief that the type of person I interact with matters a lot more than just interacting with somebody in life. But what it means, and I think this is what it means now, is that because they've gone with the advertising model, they need us to engage with it more and more. And it's something that easily intrudes in our lives more and more. We have, at this time in our lives, more than really at any point in human history, we have the ability to choose who and when and how we interact with other people in ways that we just didn't used to. Any given moment, you could engage with someone sitting next to you, you could talk with a colleague in the hallway, or you could choose not to. You could spend entire days alone without ever interacting with anybody else, right? Social media allows you at any given moment, somebody sits down next to you, a little nervous, boom, you look at your phone instead, right? So all of those are times when social media can intrude on your choice of what to do. Do I engage or not? My advice for this is super simple. If you got something you need to do on your phone, you're calling a Lyft or whatever, you're calling mom on the phone, whatever, obviously use it as a tool for what it's good for. But the key is to not let it use you in ways you don't want to be used. I keep my phone in my bag when I'm on the train because I'd rather engage with people because I know it'll be more fun. If I got to do something, I'll work on my laptop if I got to work. But if I'm open to engaging, keep the phone away so that it doesn't use me.
Put it away. That's hard, but that's maybe the trick there.
Turns out it's pretty pleasant to not have it on you for a while.
Yeah. Okay. Well, are there other things about the book and your experience in the research that you want to make sure people know, and so that they're looking for the book when it comes out in May?
I think it's. I think the big part for me is how empowering understanding the mistakes that we make about each other can be. I'm a social psychologist. I study social cognition for a living, how thinking people think about other thinking people. And in particular, I'm interested in cases where we misunderstand other people. And when you notice those misunderstandings, what I think we have discovered are ways in which we're keeping ourselves sort of imprisoned in some way, right? Our fears about other people keep us from reaching out and connecting with others more often than would be good for our own good, right? Than would be ideal for our own good. And once you start to see that those bars that are holding you back are really more like pasta noodles, like they're not legitimate, it changes your life. And I don't mean to be hyperbolic with that. No research I've ever been involved with has changed the way I live my life more than this. It is fundamentally empowering. Throughout the book, I talk with people who spend a lot of time talking with other people. And to a person, they talk about their ability to engage with other people as a superpower. And it feels that way. Like, if you are nervous about engaging with other people, say you're a more introverted person, introversion is not really about not enjoying interaction, it's about not choosing it. It's a habit. Personality is really a habit. You start to see ways in which you're holding yourself back, maybe mistakenly. And once you break out of that, it's really powerful. I can talk with anybody, anywhere, anytime. And I know it'll be good because I take an interest in other people. It comes to feel like a superpower.
All right. And maybe we ought to dip back into the book real quick. You had an anecdote at the beginning. Claire, I think, was the person.
Claire Foyer.
I mean, that's like an extraordinary story she had to tell.
Yeah.
And that may demonstrate how
one day out of the blue, I had no idea what Claire's story was. One day out of the blue, I got a package in my office with little buttons. New York City Subway Social Club. Claire Foyer is the founder of the New York City Subway Social Club. And as I got to talk to her a little bit, she was just writing to tell me she'd read about our research here in the train. She said, I find that experience in New York all the time. I do too when I visit New York. People are happy to talk when you try. But then I talked to her a little bit more. How did you get started doing this? Like, what made you think to do this? Her mother worked for the subway in Boston, so she had a little thought. You know, she spent time in the subway, so she was kind of focused on that. But what it really was an experience she had when she was 14 years old. She contacted me when she was about 26. She just had a baby recently, so that's lovely. But when she was 14, she woke up in the middle of the night. She was at her dad's house in Brooklyn and noticed that the door to her bedroom that goes to the courtyard behind her house was open, and saw that there was like a helicopter hovering above the house, and there were flashing lights, police lights, coming through the window, and the door was open. And she thought, oops, she'd forgotten to lock or whatever. She went over, she shut the door, and when she shut the door, she noticed that there was a man standing behind the door in the corner. And she said, at that moment, she kind of went into shock. And in her mind, she said, all right, this is it. She said it ran all the way from her feet down to the ground. And in that moment, though, 14 years old, she said it struck her, I need to have a conversation here. So you could have imagined, she could have responded in any number of ways. She could have screamed or gone at him, whatever. And I'm not saying, there are plenty of cases like this that turn out very, very badly, but here she took control of the start of the conversation. I have to have a conversation. And so she did. She started by setting some ground rules. All right, I'm not going to try to hurt you, and I need you not to try to hurt us, okay? But let's sit down and let's talk about what's going on here. And she said she sat down, she started to have a conversation, just trying to figure out what was going on, establish some things in common with this guy. And she ended up having like a half-hour conversation with him, sitting there in the bedroom. She heard her dad coming down the hallway, tucked this guy off on the side and said, be quiet. That's like every parent's nightmare, she told me, that this would happen. Went out, talked to her dad, tried to calm him down. Dad came in and said, look, we're not going to have this guy in the house. So came in, they let him out the front door, and off he went. They called the police afterwards. They never actually learned what happened to him. They think he was arrested, likely for trespassing in a building behind the house. But she realized at that moment the power that conversation had, how empowering for her conversation could be to control a situation for the better. And she's never seen that man before, but that was what led her to think, we've got all this power on the train for people to connect that folks aren't using, and so she uses it.
There you go. And compared to talking with a stranger across the aisle from you, that's a little.
That was pretty extreme.
She could do that. Yeah.
That's pretty extreme, right? So that's not everybody's story, but it was certainly hers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time. We look forward to the book coming out in May, and I'm sure we'll hear more about it when the time comes.
I'll look forward to seeing readers on the train maybe sometime.
Okay,
And if you see me on the train, don't hesitate to say hi, please.
All right. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Eric.
Take care.